In the wake of the explosions in Boston, I find myself concerned about terrorism, but not in the way you might think. The bombings were, of course, terrible. Murder is always wrong. There is little debate to be had about that point. But as law enforcement ramps up its pursuit of suspects, some disturbing trends are coming to the light. Namely, that our citizenry is being informally conscripted into the investigation to a massive degree. I suppose this kind of thing is inevitable in an age where amateur video and photographs are the norm. And, in the interest of justice, isn't it the responsibility of law enforcement to utilize whatever evidence is at their disposal in the pursuit of these criminals? Yes, absolutely. But there's collateral damage associated with this tactic. Several false arrests have been made, and media speculation on the suspects is rampant. This reminds me that our war on terrorism is not as simple as our concept of justice. Our war is against an ism. The Department of Homeland Security has taken steps to avoid unfairly characterizing a terrorist as inherently tied to a religion or region. In short, their stated policy is that not all terrorists are Muslim. That's good because it's true. The IRA or Aryan Nation are neither Muslim nor Middle Eastern. But this politically correct nod to the complexity of terror illustrates the futility of the war itself. The war, by definition, cannot be won and will continue indefinitely. We killed bin Laden, and no one said, "War's over, let's go home." It will only stop when the government decides to stop it. It is beyond me to speculate what conditions might bring about the war on terror's end. War is changing. We knew World War II was over because Japan surrendered and Hitler killed himself. Our objectives were clear. The Boston bombing is not so clear. Whoever planned the attack can be brought to justice, true. We can lock him, her, or them up forever. But at what cost do we continue to pursue terrorism? How many casualties will occur in the name of the nebulous terrorist? Who do we look for? When do we admit our culpability in these acts? Now citizens are the police. We might as well be given deputy sheriff's badges because we're all involved in the hunt. You'll see the alleged license plate of the supposed bomber on Facebook. Keep a lookout for this shadowy figure, call in the threat, it's your patriotic duty, etc. All the while, it is precisely this dissemination of unreliable information that confounds official efforts to capture the bombers. There are too many cooks in the kitchen. From a logical, practical standpoint, this simply doesn't work. From a political standpoint, it has dangerous consequences as well. It's clear that we're taking on a vigilante role for justice. Our own interpretations of the law, of evidence and procedure, are being implemented in the fight. Most of us in Emporia will not be much help to the investigation, obviously. However, a culture of policing and governance will seep into our everyday interactions. The constant gaze of suspicion will temper our lives. Our neighbors might fit the description. We become the largest gitmo in the world. Are we justified? Maybe. It's definitely scary to think that Plum Hall is perhaps more vulnerable than the Boston Marathon was. That kind of realization can make us do some pretty drastic things. But more than likely, it will make us do small things that add up over time. It might not be dramatic and we might not notice it, but habitual self-policing is a learned culture. It can be unlearned, but that's hardly ever peaceful. Examples of self-governance abound: the Spanish Inquisition, Jews that volunteered to police other Jews during World War II because they were promised mercy that never came, the Red Scare in the United States, and many, many more. This is not to say that we are the same as those examples, but it was necessary in all of those scenarios that ordinary citizens take on the role of law enforcement. I suggest that we let law enforcement do its job. Understand that our need to get the bad guy is always tainted by our ignorance. We should be wiser than our situation. It might not seem like I'm talking to anyone but Bostonians, but it's just as much about each and every one of us. We will walk away from this situation with the dangerous cocktail of close enough to care, but far enough to forget. We will hold on to the feeling of fear longer than we will the memory of it. Should something like this happen in Emporia, that sensory memory will provoke us to act in ways we cannot predict unless we are cognizant of our reactions to this scenario now. So support law enforcement and support Boston. They deserve it. But remember that we are policed enough as it is. We don't need every citizen constantly questioning our intentions and motivations. Our safety is important, but not at the absolute expense of our liberty. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the square.